There is a mystery surrounding a chosen woman. You can recognize her not by her clothes, not by her language, and not even by her achievements, but by her path. Her path is often narrow, her steps are often quiet, and her journey, many times, is taken in solitude. But this solitude is not a curse. It is a sign of divine selection. It is the fingerprint of heaven marking her life with purpose. It is evidence that God Himself is shaping her away from noise, away from crowds, and away from the distractions that ordinary people cling to. A chosen woman does not walk alone because she is unloved. She walks alone because she carries something sacred inside her, something too precious to be exposed to careless hands. She carries dreams that are not ordinary, assignments that are not common, and spiritual weight that not everyone is strong enough to understand. Many people around her may see only her outer world, but heaven sees her inner calling. And when heaven calls a woman, it takes her into seasons where she is separated, refined, and strengthened. These seasons feel lonely, but they are not signs of abandonment. They are signs of preparation. There are moments when a chosen woman looks at her life and wonders, why am I walking this road alone? Why does it feel like no one understands me? Why am I different? But she does not realize that the very questions she asks are proof of her assignment. God removes noise from her life because her ears must stay open to the whisper of His instructions. God removes unnecessary relationships because her heart must be protected to nurture the calling inside her. God closes doors every other person is running through because her door is unique, crafted only for her. A chosen woman is often placed in environments that do not match her destiny. She sits among people who misunderstand her. She stands among people who underestimate her. She tries to explain the fire inside her, but the fire cannot be explained. It can only be lived. That is why she walks alone. That is why she is set apart. That is why her path is different. She is being trained in silence for a breakthrough that will one day make noise across generations. There is also a spiritual reason behind her solitude. Elevation requires separation. Whenever God is about to lift a woman higher, He pulls her away from lower places. Whenever God wants to reveal the next dimension of her life, He isolates her from the influences that could contaminate her spirit. She is not alone. She is being assembled. She is not lonely. She is being shaped. She is not forgotten. She is being remembered in a way she cannot yet understand. Sometimes people leave her, not because they are evil, but because they cannot walk at her pace. Her journey demands spiritual discipline. Her destiny requires emotional strength. Her calling asks for clarity, purity, wisdom, and resilience. The people who were comfortable with her old level cannot survive her new level. The loneliness she feels is simply space God is making for new connections, divine helpers, higher relationships, and a tribe that understands her value. A chosen woman walks alone because heaven is teaching her to depend on God more than anyone else. She learns to pray in silence. She learns to worship without applause. She learns to trust without evidence. She learns to walk without explanations. These private victories become the foundation of her public triumphs. What she conquers alone becomes the testimony she will share with thousands. What she survives in silence becomes the wisdom she will speak into others. Her solitude is a divine classroom where she learns identity. She learns who she is, not the version people created, but the version God designed. She realizes she is not fragile. She is fierce. She is not abandoned. She is appointed. She is not overlooked. She is hidden for the right time. And when the time comes, she will rise not as a woman who was alone, but as a woman who was prepared. So if you are a chosen woman walking alone, do not fear your path. Do not question your season. Do not doubt your steps. Heaven is closer than you think. God is more involved than you feel. and your destiny is greater than you imagine. The silence around you is not emptiness. It is God building a stage. The loneliness you feel is not rejection. It is God clearing the room so your purpose can be seen clearly. You walk alone because you are chosen. You walk alone because you are protected. You walk alone because you are being prepared for a destiny too powerful to share with the wrong people. One day, everything will make sense. But for now, walk your path with confidence because heaven walks with you. When a woman is chosen by God, her journey rarely resembles the paths of those around her. She may look like everyone else, talk like everyone else, work among ordinary people, and live a seemingly ordinary life, yet something about her spirit sets her apart. This separation is not accidental. It is woven into her destiny. Solitude becomes a divine signal that heaven has placed a mark on her life. While others can blend into crowds, she cannot. While others can follow trends, she cannot. While others can settle for what is comfortable, her spirit resists anything that is less than what God has designed for her. This inner longing, this quiet restlessness, this sacred discomfort is the first clue that her loneliness is not random. It is the evidence that she has been chosen for something greater. A chosen woman does not walk alone because she lacks people who care for her. She walks alone because the weight of her calling cannot be understood by everyone. People may misinterpret her silence, her focus, or her seriousness. They may think she is distant when in truth she is simply listening to a different voice. She is tuned to a divine frequency, and not everyone around her can hear what she hears. Her solitude creates space for her to think, to pray, to hear, and to grow. While others fill their minds with noise, her spirit craves quietness. While others chase approval, her soul pursues alignment. While others seek companionship for comfort, she seeks companionship with purpose. Being chosen means that God has placed something inside her that requires protection, a dream, a calling, a message, a strength, a vision that cannot be prematurely exposed. If she were surrounded by too many people, the wrong voices could drown out God's instructions. If she were constantly surrounded by noise, she would lose the clarity that her assignment requires. Her solitude is a wall built by heaven to protect the seed growing inside her. Seeds do not grow in public. They grow buried, hidden, and unseen. A chosen woman often feels buried, but she is actually being planted. And like all planted things, her growth happens quietly, away from the eyes of the world. There are seasons in her life when she may feel misunderstood. Friends may drift away. Family may not fully grasp her purpose. Relationships may not last. Invitations may stop coming. But none of these are signs of rejection. They are signs of redirection. God is rearranging her environment to match her destiny. When God calls a woman higher, he removes the weights that could slow her down. When he wants to speak deeply to her, he silences every voice that might distract her. This may feel like abandonment, but in reality, it is divine alignment. Sometimes she wonders why she thinks differently than others, why she feels deeply when others seem shallow, why she cares about things that others ignore, why she sees potential where others see limitations, why she senses things before they happen. This inner sensitivity is not weakness, it is spiritual awareness. God has made her spiritually awake because her calling demands it. Not everyone can walk with a woman who sees beyond what is visible. Not everyone can understand a woman who dreams on levels they have never experienced. Not everyone can relate to a woman whose heart is shaped by God's purpose, not by society's expectations. Her solitude becomes the place where she discovers who she truly is. Without the influence of people pulling her in different directions, she begins to hear her own thoughts clearly. Without comparing herself to others, she begins to discover her uniqueness. Without the pressure to fit in, she begins to embrace the identity God handcrafted for her. She realizes that her strength grows in silence, her wisdom develops in quietness, her resilience rises in stillness. She becomes grounded, centered, and spiritually anchored, not because she walked with crowds, but because she walked with God. The path of a chosen woman is not easy, but it is purposeful. She learns to carry responsibilities that others cannot handle. She learns to fight battles that others are not equipped to face. She learns to endure seasons that would break ordinary people. And through these experiences, she becomes a vessel of strength, courage, and depth. Her solitude shapes her into the woman she was always meant to be, not shaped by the world, but shaped by heaven. There are moments when God hides her not to punish her, but to preserve her. Some seasons of her life are quiet because God is working behind the scenes. She may feel unseen, but she is being prepared. She may feel unappreciated, but she is being developed. She may feel disconnected, but she is being reconnected to a higher purpose. The silence in her life is not emptiness, it is preparation. The isolation she feels is not loneliness, it is refinement. The separation she experiences is not rejection, it is consecration. And slowly she begins to realize that being chosen is not about being celebrated, it is about being prepared. Being chosen is not about being recognized, it is about being refined. Being chosen is not about popularity, it is about purpose. She walks alone because her destiny requires it. She walks alone because God is shaping her privately before he reveals her publicly. And though she walks alone, she is never truly alone, because every step she takes is guided by heaven. When God is preparing to elevate a woman into a higher dimension of purpose, he does not move her gradually or gently into it. He separates her first. Separation is not punishment, it is preparation. Elevation requires space, clarity, and purification, and these can only come when the influences around her are realigned. A chosen woman may feel the shift before she understands it. Suddenly, the conversations that once excited her feel empty. The relationships she once depended on begin to loosen. The environments she once enjoyed no longer feel like home. She wonders why her spirit no longer connects where it used to, why the desire to blend in disappears, why the pull to stay is replaced by a divine urge to rise. This is heaven preparing her for elevation. Heaven. Separation is often silent. God does not always announce it. He simply begins to move pieces in her life like a master sculptor shaping a masterpiece. Friends drift, opportunities shift, familiar doors close, not because she did anything wrong, but because heaven is protecting her from distractions that cannot exist on the level she is about to enter. The altitude of her next season demands a lighter load, and God refuses to allow her to carry anything that will slow her ascent. People who were perfect for her past may become burdens in her future. Environments that once supported her growth may become limiting cages. God sees this long before she does, and so he separates her to preserve her destiny. There are moments when she feels the sting of separation. She feels left out, forgotten, or excluded, but she does not see that heaven is shielding her from connections that were never meant to travel with her. Some people cannot breathe at the altitude God is elevating her to. Their loyalty may be real, but their capacity is small. Their intentions may be good, but their vision is limited. Their love may be genuine, but their presence would interfere with what God is building within her. God removes them not to hurt her, but to protect what he is about to release in her life. Elevation also requires a transformation of identity. God cannot elevate a woman who still sees herself through the lens of her old season. So separation becomes the environment where her mindset shifts. Alone with God, She begins to remember who she is. She rediscovers her strength, her voice, her worth, and her calling. She sheds the insecurities that were attached to old relationships. She releases the doubts that came from old environments. She lets go of the fear that was fed by the opinions of those who never understood her purpose. In solitude, God rewrites her internal dialogue. He replaces fear with confidence, confusion with clarity, and weakness with spiritual authority. As she transitions through separation, God teaches her to walk by faith instead of comfort. On her previous level, she depended on people, approval, and predictable patterns. But where she is going, she must learn to depend wholly on God. He elevates her not to a place of convenience, but to a place of calling. And calling requires obedience. Obedience requires trust. Trust requires separation. Before God can expand her territory, he expands her spirit. Before he enlarges her influence, he enlarges her faith. Before he elevates her publicly, he strengthens her privately. Every great elevation is preceded by a moment of isolation that refines the soul. And there is a spiritual reason behind this. New levels carry new battles. The warfare she faced at her old level was designed for who she used to be. But the warfare waiting at her new level requires a woman who has been transformed, sharpened, and spiritually armed. Separation becomes a training ground. She begins to hear God clearly because the noise around her has been removed. She develops spiritual sensitivity, discernment, and strength. She learns to recognize the difference between divine opportunities and disguised distractions. She learns to protect her anointing, her peace, and her purpose. By the time she arrives at her next level, she is not the same woman who began the journey. She is stronger, wiser, and spiritually ready. During separation, God also reveals the truth about relationships. Some people were seasonal, and she held on to them as if they were permanent. Some were assignments, not partners. Some were lessons, not lifetimes. God allows separation to clarify what was meant to stay and what was meant to pass through. She begins to understand that losing people is not losing destiny. In fact, it is often the doorway to fulfilling it. She realizes that growth always exposes who cannot grow with her. Elevation always exposes who cannot climb with her. Maturity always exposes who cannot walk with her. And so she accepts the shift, not because she is heartless, but because she is called. Separation also cultivates courage. God elevates a woman into a realm where she must walk boldly, speak boldly, decide boldly, and lead boldly. But courage cannot grow when she leans on others for validation. It grows when she stands alone with God and discovers that he is enough. The more she walks alone, the more she realizes she is not truly alone. God's presence becomes her companion. His voice becomes her guide. His strength becomes her stability. She begins to walk with a different posture, confident, assured, spiritually grounded, because she has learned to depend on God more than the crowd. Elevation is not random, it is intentional. And separation is God's way of pulling her away from what she has outgrown so he can push her toward what she was born for. Every time she felt left out, she was actually being lifted up. Every time she felt isolated, she was being insulated. Every time she felt alone, she was being aligned. God separates her, not to break her, but to build her into a woman capable of carrying the greatness he is about to release into her life. When a woman is chosen by God, one of the greatest tests she endures is the pruning and refining of her desires. There is a holy disruption that takes place inside her spirit, where God begins to strip away every attachment that cannot travel with her into the next season. This process feels lonely because it forces her to confront the dreams, relationships, and expectations she once held close, but now must release. she discovers that walking with God sometimes requires walking away from what is comfortable. And though she may not always understand the why, the Holy Spirit keeps pulling her deeper, inviting her into a level of obedience that few are willing to embrace. This inner refining isn't gentle, it's intentional. God removes what she thought she needed so he can give her what he always intended. As she walks through this refining, the chosen woman begins to realize that the things she once chased no longer satisfy her. The places that once felt exciting now seem too small. The relationships that once fed her ego no longer feed her soul. She used to crave validation, but now she only craves his voice. She used to fear rejection, but now she fears disappointing God. Her values begin to shift. Her priorities start to rearrange. Her appetite for spiritual truth grows stronger than her appetite for worldly approval. She stops fitting in with old crowds, not because she thinks she is better, but because God is making her different. The chosen woman understands that calling always requires consecration, and consecration always requires separation. This refining also exposes her heart to herself. She begins to see areas that were hidden: insecurities, fears, pride, impatience, emotional wounds, not because God wants to shame her, but because he wants to heal her. Chosen women are not hardened warriors. They are softened vessels shaped by the hands of a loving Father. But the shaping process hurts. It stretches her. It humbles her. It requires surrender. She prays prayers she never thought she would pray. Lord, take anything that is not from you. And when he does, she feels the emptiness before she feels the fulfillment. She feels the loss before she feels the restoration. But that is the nature of the refining fire. It burns away what is lesser so that what is divine can emerge. During this season, she is often misunderstood. People around her may think she is changing too fast, becoming too serious, too distant, too spiritual, too careful about her environment. But what they do not see is the war happening inside her. They do not see the nights she spends in prayer, pleading for clarity. They do not see the tears she hides as God uproots old habits. They do not see the discipline she chooses when temptation whispers. They do not see the determination she carries to obey when no one is watching. The chosen woman walks through a hidden transformation that only heaven acknowledges. She learns to stop defending her process and start trusting the one who is leading it. The refining of her desires also makes her more unshakable. When God removes what is temporary, he strengthens what is eternal. She becomes less attached to outcomes, less anxious about the approval of others, and less fearful of the unknown. She becomes anchored in God's direction rather than her own understanding. This kind of woman is no longer moved by flattery or threatened by criticism. Her spirit becomes steady, not because life becomes easy, but because her desires have been aligned with heaven. She learns to wait without complaining, to serve without recognition, to love without expecting return. Her patience deepens, her perspective expands. She becomes spiritually mature in ways she never was before. As God refines her, he also elevates her discernment. She can sense danger before it appears. She can feel when someone's intentions are not pure. She can recognize opportunities that look good but are not God-sent. Her spiritual ears become more sensitive, her spiritual eyes more open. She develops the ability to read situations with wisdom instead of emotion. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens through repeated experiences where God teaches her to trust his voice above her own impulses. Every wrong turn she avoids becomes proof of his guidance. Every closed door becomes evidence of his protection. Every delay becomes a lesson in divine timing. This inner transformation is the reason the chosen woman begins to walk differently. She carries herself with grace, not arrogance. She speaks with authority, not loudness. She moves with purpose, not haste. Her presence becomes peaceful, not passive. People may not understand what changed, but they feel the difference. The refining process has pressed out the impatience, the insecurity, the desperation, the doubt, and in their place, God has poured confidence, clarity, purity, and boldness. She becomes the kind of woman who knows who she is, not because she discovered herself, but because she discovered God. This refining also prepares her for the assignments that will require emotional and spiritual strength. God invests deeply in chosen women because their calling carries weight. They will influence, nurture, lead, intercede, build, and heal. But before they can carry others, they must first be emptied of what could break them. Before they can be trusted with destiny, they must be cleansed of distractions. Before they can walk in authority, they must walk through humility. So God shapes her not for where she is, but for where she is going. He refines her desires so that when he finally releases her into her calling, nothing inside her will sabotage what he gives. In the end, the journey of a chosen woman is not defined by how many people walk with her, but by how faithfully she walks with God. Her loneliness was never a punishment, it was preparation. Her silence was never abandonment, it was alignment. Her separation was never rejection, it was elevation. Everything she endured, every prayer she whispered, every tear she shed was shaping her into the woman heaven needed her to become. She was not walking alone, she was being led. She was not forgotten, she was being formed. She was not delayed, she was being developed. And now she stands stronger, wiser, deeper, more rooted, more discerning, and more surrendered than ever before. If you look at her closely, you will see that the wilderness didn't break her, it built her. The refining didn't destroy her, it purified her. The shifting didn't confuse her, it guided her. She is who she is today because God walked her through a path that many would fear to take. But she chose to trust him. She chose to follow him. She chose to surrender to his shaping hand, even when she didn't understand. And because of that obedience, because of that willingness to walk alone with God, she is now stepping into a level of destiny that others only dream about. So if you are a woman who feels set apart, misunderstood, isolated, or stretched, take heart. You are not losing your way. You are finding it. You are not being pushed out. You are being pulled upward. You are not walking alone. You are walking with the one who goes before you, walks beside you, and strengthens you from within. The God who gave you the calling will also give you the endurance. The God who marked you will also maintain you. The God who chose you will also carry you. A chosen woman walks alone for a season so she can walk in purpose for a lifetime. And when God is finished preparing her, nothing on earth can stop her. Nothing can silence her. Nothing can shake her. For she walks not by the strength of crowds, but by the whisper of the Almighty. And that is the power, the beauty, and the destiny of a woman chosen by God.